Lyre of the Lion by TheNightNinja2. Chapter 37. The Chaos of Family. Mirabelle now had a new roommate as they sailed back to Narnia. Lily Andel, daughter of Ramandu, found life aboard the ship intriguing, but not as much as the young woman she shared her quarters with. But both girls got along well, and by the journey's end were as close as sisters. Arriving back in Narnia saw hundreds of massive parties. The descendants of Mirabelle's handmaidens from her first reign pledged their loyalty and friendship to Mira, who gladly gave them the honour their ancestors had. She had her wing of the castle back, as well as her sewing room. The moment Trumpkin learned of her inevitable return, there had been a mad dash to get her quarters made and opulently appointed, especially her own brand new private wine cellars. The blush on the dwarf's face would have made a tomato jealous as she hugged him in thanks. Her windows opened out to private gardens, complete with miles of vineyards. The gifts of her siblings were now in her private treasury only she had access to. Her gowns had been recreated from paintings and stories passed by word of mouth, and her original crown had been found through the same spells once used to find Susan's horn. Drinian had his own room in her wing at Cair Paravel. It was only until they married, though, and would share a room. Balls, parties, feasts. The next year was a blur for her, as 5 out of 7 days of the week Mirabelle spent under the influence of the best wine in the world, a gift from Bacchus himself upon her return. Caspian had never laughed so much in his life as he saw the woman he saw as a sister resume her antics that had become a legend in Narnia. Her return marked the most prosperous year in Narnia since the Golden Age. Drinian fell deeper in love with her, if that was possible. The way she danced with the children at balls, treated her servants as her best friends, her flirting with him as she was too drunk to stand, yet every word she meant. One afternoon she ran to Lily Andel in excitement. "Lily, Lily, 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 Lily!" she shouted. "What is it, Mira?" asked Lily Andel in amusement. "Bacchus promised that at my engagement party he would teach me how he makes wine from nothing!" exclaimed Mirabelle. "Oh, Aslan, help us!" groaned Lily Andel with a large grin on her face. Mirabelle's new ring glittered brightly in the sunlight pouring through the windows of the castle. The sapphire and silver ring was a wonder of dwarven craftsmanship. Hundreds of smiths across Narnia had clamoured for the honour of making the engagement ring for the princess. There had been no doubt she'd say yes. The engagement party had been set for a month's time, as it would easily be the biggest party of Narnia's history. To date, at least. The whole wing was soon full of happy squeals of women fawning over the ring. "Remind me to thank Trumpkin for Mirabelle proving the castle," grinned Caspian, as he stood next to Lily Andel. "She wakes up in the cupboards of the pantries 3 days a week. If she wasn't made of magic, she would have died by now," said Lily Andel. "I think she's trying to have as much fun as possible before she inevitably becomes a mother and needs to be responsible," chuckled Caspian. "This is a beautiful disaster," laughed Caspian at Mirabelle's engagement party. The princess herself had started a food fight, something no inner child could resist. He ducked a flying potato as Lily Andel laughed, retaliating by launching a pie over the table. Mirabelle's wedding had hundreds of thousands of guests from both Narnia and the surrounding countries. Surprisingly, Mirabelle had chosen to stay sober, mostly so that she wouldn't spill wine on her dress. Caspian's wedding to Lily Andel was the only occasion to rival Mira's wedding, followed soon after by the births of Caspian's son Prince Rilian and Mirabelle's daughter Princess Dawn Antonia. The royal children only being a month apart in age, Dawn being born first. 2 years after, Mirabelle gave birth to the twins Pedro Peter and Susan Louisa. Rilian and Dawn grew up as close as brother and sister. Mirabelle had toned down her drinking once she became a mother. It was now only on very rare occasions that she drank, and never enough to stop her being a good mother. Pedro and Susan had gotten both of their parents' love of sailing and their mother's fun side. Dawn had her mother's intelligence and leadership. Pedro was a boy who loved his family more than anything, much like his namesake, but he looked like a spitting image of his father. Susan and Dawn looked just like their mother, if not with slightly less curly hair and lighter skin. All three of Mirabel's children had some magical abilities. Dawn could see straight through lies and spot a shifty character from a mile away. The clumsiness that had plagued Mirabel and her father once upon a time had manifested the opposite in young Pedro, with the balance of a cat and the grace of a gazelle. No matter how hard he was pushed, he would be as steady as a boulder until he himself moved. Susan had gotten her mother's temper and affinity for fire. The young girl had an immunity to heat and flames. She could even produce fireballs like her mama. Her nickname among her family and friends was Phoenix. It was quite a shock and a scare to find a 6-month-old Susan sitting in the lit fireplace, giggling like she had found the best hiding spot ever. Other than being covered in soot, there wasn't a burn on her. Dawn often shared the same lessons as Aurelian, as she was the eldest of the ancient Pevensey line, and Narnia had no such outlandish rules of succession that a male heir automatically surpassed an elder sister in line of the throne. The eldest was the eldest, regardless of gender. Of course, all three of Mirabel's children had their mother's sense of humour and mischief, and prowess with a bow and sword. Dawn was promised her mother's lyre, the horn and bow of her aunt. Pedro would be promised the sword of Peter when he came of age, and Susan would lay claim to the cordial and dagger of Lucy. 8 thrones now sat in Cair Paravel. Mirabel sat in hers, Drinian beside her on her right, Dawn, Susan and Pedro next to him. On her left sat young Aurelian, who was to his mother's right as she was on the right of Caspian. Mirabel sighed contentedly as morning court commenced, as the sun rose behind them, and a small scuffle between Pedro and Dawn with their practice swords broke out that was swiftly handled by Drinian. She looked at Liliandel, and both women broke out into giggles. Aurelian looked like he wanted to play with his cousins, but saw them getting scolded by their father and thought better of himself. And even as Susan set a fire to a tapestry, Mirabel couldn't imagine her life being any better than this. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. I like that one, short though it was, very, very nice. I love just the children, and she gets along with them. She and Liliandel are close. Bacchus saying that he would teach her how to make wine out of nothing, and the others like saying, oh, Aslan, help us. Very funny. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe, and hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.